In the African community, before any great undertaking, there's always a ritual that we perform, and that ritual is the ritual of libation. This libation is a libation opportunity for us to join together as a united community, as one, to unite those that have gone on before us, those who are our recent ancestors that have departed, as well as our unborn children who will come in their own time. And I would ask that you allow me to assume this posture of deference and reverence to the absolute and to our ancestors. And we do that by calling out to the absolute. We call out to you, you who is known by many different names. We've assembled here tonight to bear witness that you are the infinite, all-wise, all-knowing one. We call out to you. We call out to you in those most ancient names of the absolute. So we call out in the names of Ptah, Amun, Ra. We call out to you. We call out to you in those names that have come down through the annals of time, through the many generations of African people. And so we utter the names of Obatala, Yenya, Oshun. We call out in the names of Kwame Yankopon, the most ancient ancestor. We ask that you, Obade, Triadupon, Odukoma, the creative force, bear witness your children have assembled here on this night. Jiyame, the God force of the universe. And even down through the times of us traveling from our motherland into other lands, we utter the names of, yes, you, Jehovah, Yahweh, the Christ, Allah, Ra, Jah. We call you. Come bear witness that your children have assembled here on this night, and that our words be like arrows dipped in honey, that when they find their way to our hearts, that they are soothing and they bring great joy and pleasure and not hurt and pain. We ask that you come and allow us to walk upright and be a manifestation of you here on this earthly plane. And so, we pour the drink, and we ask that you ancestors, whose names we do not know, but we know you existed because each and every one of us is a manifestation of some great African that existed over 40,000 generations ago. We call out to you, you great ancestors, you who outstretched arms lay beneath the Atlantic Ocean, beckoning us to reclaim our bird of passage in the spirit of Sankofa, 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 to return back and fetch what we've forgotten so that we can again return to our glorious ways as African people. Come, great ancestors, have your drink as we all say in pour libation. We call out to you Africans whose names we do know. We know who you are because down through the annals of time you have left your mark. You've left the mark of what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a man. So you've given us our peoplehood. And so we call out to you, you great ancestors. Yes, you in Zinga, come, be with us here on this night. Ya Asantawa, you great queen mother. Come, Pianke, come, Tutmosis, come have your drink with us tonight. We beckon you from down through the annals of time because we know you hover among us right now to give us guidance, to give us understanding, to give us infinite wisdom. Come have your drink on this night as we all say in pour libation. We call forth those ancestors who continued the fight, to continue the forward struggle for African liberation here in the diaspora. So yes, we honor you on this night. Boukman and Cecilia Fatima, come be with us here tonight, Zuni. Have your drink. Come, Queen Mother, yes, Harriet Tubman, Sojourner Truth, Denmark Vesey, Gabriel Prosser, Nat Turner. Come, be with us here on this night. Yes, the real dream team, El Hajj Malik Shabazz, and yes, you, Martin Luther King. Come, be with us here on this night as we all say and pour libation. And now we call forth those names of our cultural heroes and sheroes. You know, the ones who have given us the prescriptions, who've given us the playbook, have given us the roadmap for African liberation. And so we honor you on this night. Come, Bobby E. Wright, be with us here tonight. Barbara Jake Carruthers, come, be with us. Barbara Sizemore, come, yes. Margaret Burroughs, come, have your drink with us tonight. Come, you great ancestors, as we say in pour libation. This is a time for us to meditate and call out our own lines and lineages, our mothers, our fathers, our great-great-great-grandparents. Utter their names through the meditations of your heart, but never be afraid to call out their names, because it's only when you stop calling their names that they cease to exist. Your ancestors, they live. They live in you. They speak to you. They speak through you. So take a moment to just honor them and call forth the names. I call forth the names of my mother and my father, Janie and Willie Lee Harris. I call forth the names of my grandparents, Charles and Cleo Howe. I call forth the names of my father's parents, Lucille and Thomas Harris. Follow that prescription and your ancestors will always come to you and speak to you and through you because they live in you. Come, great ancestors, have your drink, as we all say in pour libation. And now, we call forth the unborn child, because the unborn child is the absolute's way saying that life will and life must go on. For in the African proverb it says, children are the rewards of life. And then when the unborn children come in their own time, they will hold all of us, those of you viewing this, those of you who are participating in this moment, accountable. That we as an African people dared to struggle, dared to have the audacity to believe that they could live a freer and fuller life than we ever could have imagined. Come, unborn children, come in your own time. Beckon your parents to dance. Beckon your fathers to work and build. Beckon African people to march forward into their destiny of liberation, freedom, and humanity. Come have your drink, as we all say in pour libation. And it is done. And if we truly, truly believe in our hearts that we are an African people, then let it be as our brothers and sisters in Mali, the Dogon people would say, the Nomo, which means sacred speech. If you speak it, it manifests itself on whatever plane. And so it passed through the Middle Passage and it survived in the wit and wisdom of our elders. When Mudir and Papa would say, if you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say nothing. Because the power of life and death is in the tongue. We can speak life into our communities again. We can speak love into our communities again. We can speak compassion into our communities again. When and if we practice Sankofa, which is us going back and reclaiming what is ours. Medase, Asante Sana, thank you very much. It is done.
Alafia, I'm Dr. Gloria Lattimore Peace, host and producer of OmniU Presents the H3O Art of Life show. Asante Sana to Kwesi Ronald Harris, who poured our libation to the ancestors, and we greatly appreciate his willingness to do that on almost all sacred occasions. And I'm here with part 2 of honoring and preserving Black cultural institutions. And I have as my guest Mia Miles, who is a volunteer with the Southside Community Arts Center, founded by Dr. Margaret Taylor Goss Burroughs, or I should say co-founded. She always corrected us when we said she was founder of these institutions, but she was co-founder of the DuSable Museum, and she was also co-founder of the Southside Community Arts Center, and long before Mia was born, so she doesn't know the history, and we're not going to go into the history of the Southside Community Arts Center, what we're going to do is do a forward thrust and look at its present in a view toward looking at its future. And I'm very happy to greet you.
Thank you so much.
I want you, first of all, to tell me about yourself so I can figure out how you wound up being a volunteer at the Southside Community Arts Center.
Well, initially, I grew up on the west side of Chicago, and so I went to college. You know, my grandmother fought for me to go to college, and I went
Which
to
college?
school, the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana.
Okay.
And I worked myself to school because financially she couldn't afford it. And I graduated and I came home with these big old dreams. And the real world wasn't as pleasing as I thought it was going to be.
What year did you graduate?
In 2013.
Okay.
And so I worked and I was looking for something to have as a hobby or something that gave me the same feeling I had when I was on the Urbana campus. I was a volunteer and an employee for what we call the Black House, but it was the African American Culture Center on campus, which became like a second home to me. And I was telling my friend about my experience there, and he was like, well, there's this art gallery tour that's happening in the Bronzeville area. I've never been to the Bronzeville area. I grew up really sheltered, so like my porch in college was it for my grandmother. That's as far as I was able to go. So when we got to, our first stop was the Southside Community Arts Center, and I didn't want to leave because I was amazed at the history and the pictures I was seeing and the photographs in the main lobby area of people who look like me, of artists who look like me, and having someone tell me that that building had been there for almost 75 years, and I never saw it. I was never told about it. And just hearing about Dr. Margaret Burroughs and being completely at a loss, like how did I miss that? You know, like where was this when I was looking for inspiration in going into other fields or really explore my culture and our history? You know, no one ever told me about Dr. Margaret Burroughs. So we did the trolley tour and I was completely amazed. And Masakwa Myers, who's the director now, she was just like, oh, how do you like it? Just very genuine question. And I said, oh, I loved it. And I was like, I really loved it. She was like, you should volunteer. And I put my name on the sheet to sign up for volunteering. And she sent out an email concerning going to the first meeting. And here it is. I'm just a caseworker for the Department of Human Services. I didn't think anything would really come from volunteering at the Southside Community Arts Center, and it completely changed my life. And it's a place of peace of mind for me, because at work during the week I deal with a lot of people who seem hopeless. They're very frustrated with what's happening in their community, or they're completely unaware of what's outside of their community. And that's taxing on the brain, you know, that's heavy on the heart. And the Southside Community Arts Center became a place where I could learn and I can grow and I can express how I felt about what I was experiencing at work or driving home or in my own home. So I've been there almost every Sunday since September of last year. And it's just been such a learning experience and a growing experience for me that I just want everyone to experience the same thing and get a chance to embrace a safe place. Because a lot of times we don't really have that if you look at what's happening in society.
I thought it was interesting when you said that you graduated from University of Illinois Champaign-Urbana, because I was invited by a group of students who had an organization called If Not Now. Mm-hmm. And they invited me to come down and to give them a talk, and I did that. And I brought along my daughter, and she met one of the young men who was down there, and they are now married and parents, and it's interesting. But that was an effort on the part of young people to do something toward educating themselves, to do something toward deepening their understanding of the history and culture of our people. And so you were in the right place if you were in the Black House, because when you go on these campuses and you are so isolated from your community, it's hard to feel at home. You know, and so to have at least a place where you can be comfortable, where you can be who you are, and where you find that there are other people of like minds, that's very important. But when we were talking before we went on camera, you were talking about just your generation, you know, and we once did a show here called What Shall I Tell My Daughters? What Shall I Tell My Children Who Are Daughters? Because Dr. Burroughs wrote a poem that is actually a classic poem called What Shall I Tell My Children Who Are Black? And so I did a series of shows, one of them, What Shall I Tell My Children Who Are Sons? And What Shall I Tell My Children Who Are Daughters? But the thing that was missing was that I didn't have any daughters on my show. And so adults, elders, try to sit in a room with each other and discuss what we need to do for our children, what we need to tell our children, without input from the children themselves. And so it is very wonderful that I have you here to tell me the kinds of answers, the kinds of questions you may have, or the kinds of questions that young people like yourself may have. One of the things you talked about was the disconnect. You know, you don't really feel a sense of having roots, it's what I'm gathering you're saying. So talk to me more about that.
At this current moment in time with our generation, we have been told by society to don't get too wrapped into our own history and own culture. You know, everybody's uncomfortable when we speak of slavery, or, you know, everybody is uncomfortable when we speak of racism, or the fact that it wasn't that long ago we were being chased with dogs and water hoses were being placed on us for having peaceful marches. You know, they tell us to compromise that and be a part of this,
put it behind you.
Yeah, this unrealistic post-racism America that they've created out of words alone, no action. And it's causing us to have this battle of, well, where are we? What do we connect to? What's similar to us? And in a society where we're not really encouraged to connect to our past, we're encouraged to embrace everyone else's culture and everyone else's belief. And it's causing us to be so distracted to the point where if we say, oh, I'm going to embrace my African heritage and I want to know more about my history and I want to know more about where we came from, people are kind of responsive, like, that's kind of outdated, don't you think? And if we are being too consumed by others' cultures, oh, well, you know, that's not where you are, you're not originally a part of that. You're still an outsider. So we kind of just hang in a distance where we take from everything and we allow it to cause us to be wrapped in everyone else's progression but our own. And so you have a youth who, okay, when a young black man dies, we're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, and we're sharing pictures and we're sharing our frustration and our confusion, but we're not connected to one another. We're not connected to actually having action because we don't know where to start or what to do. Or when we're talking about places like the Southside Community Arts Center, and when you hear about Dr. Margaret Burroughs, it's like, oh, that's really nice, but that still isn't a connection. Like, that's not hip, that's not now. And when you're talking about hip-hop, or when you're talking about music, we just kind of flow with the times. So for us, we're just moving. We're just moving with the current all the time in everything that happens and everything that occurs. And for me, I can truly say being at the Southside Community Arts Center has really encouraged me and challenged me to be present and be aware of what was before me, who is currently around me as far as elders that I can talk to and learn from, and also to reach out to the people in my generation and remind them that we are a people of resilience. You know, we were innovators. If they said we couldn't have something, we created our own. And they're just like, yeah, you know, Martin Luther King, we get it. Sojourner Truth, we get it. Harriet Tubman. I'm like, oh, there's so many more people. There's so many more things that we've accomplished and created. But that right now is like so far from us. It seems so far from us. The only thing that we're closely connected to, it seems like, is the hip hop culture, which is the musicians, or everybody can relate to the Jay-Z's and the Beyoncés, but when you bring up people who every day are out here changing Black lives, it's like, oh, that's nice. But there's no true value of it.
I understand, and it's amazing how wise you are at such a young age. Your grandmother has send her my congratulations, because she said done a fine job of raising you. Most young people don't raise these kinds of issues or these kinds of questions. You know, it may be that they have to focus more on how to find a niche, how to find a job, how to find a mate, you know, how to get by from one day to the other, and these things can wait if they get considered at all. So the fact that you are, you know, raising these kinds of issues and questions is valuable for you, but it's also valuable for us. The drawback, I think, that we have from the whole notion of Black history is that we were given a false concept of what history is. History is not biographies. It is not simply a list of the people who succeeded despite all odds. It is not a list of the people who gained recognition because of some fortune or some perseverance on their part. History is the whole story of a people, and it is not just made by people who like Sojourner Truth and Harriet Tubman and Frederick Douglass, and it seems to me that they keep bringing out the same ones. So I'm not surprised that young people tire of every February, you know, they trot out the same people as though we're not million strong, as though there is no African connection. You know, all of these people are so-called African Americans. Their value to us comes from the fact that they made it despite their slave history, you know, and it is not something that you could want to connect to, you know. It's something that is maybe a first step in just maybe becoming interested in a person, and then through becoming interested in that person, maybe becoming interested in the people to whom that person belongs. But that's kind of a long shot. But history has to do with people's origins. It has to do with their land, their language, their culture, their origins, everything that has to do with people. And you learn from history because you learn, for example, how our people lived before we suffered from captivity. Because for one of the things that I will share with you, since you seem willing to listen, is that this whole concept of slavery is a fraudulent concept. We were born as free human beings. Human beings, emphasize human beings. When human beings are deprived of their freedom, they are captives. You don't become a slave because somebody has kidnapped you and placed you into captivity with the might of weapons and institutions that perpetuate that captivity. So that's the first thing we need to understand, is that we are African captives. We were never African slaves. The fact that we were made to work for no wages, you know, that our labor was also kidnapped from us, still does not make us slaves. So that's one of the things that we need to get clear about, is when you take people prisoner using force, you don't call them slaves. You call them prisoners. You call them captives, because that's what they are. And the next thing that we need to understand is that we didn't become captives because of weaknesses on our part, because many times people say, well, if we were all of that back in the day, you know, how was it that these people were able to take us captives? Well, know that there were a number of strategies. One of the strategies was to kidnap the children. So you're in your village and your children are playing, and they play all around in the safe areas, which were pretty much all of the safe areas, because children are taught the flora and the fauna of the rainforest. They know the eating habits of animals. They know which ones are carnivores. They know which ones are herbivores. They know which ones are omnivores. They also know what time they eat. Animals in the rainforest don't eat when they're not hungry. They only eat when they are hungry. So the children knew how to live. You have to think about this, get this picture of children playing in a rainforest where there are lions and tigers and deadly poisonous snakes and every possible thing, insect, animal, alike, to be wary of, but yet they didn't get themselves killed because they knew how to live in the context of that life. They knew how to live. So consequently, children played freely, and very often they were kidnapped. And when the children were discovered missing, the adults went in search of the children. And when they found the children in captivity, what do you think they did? Do you think they said, well, they got the children on that ship. We're not going up there to try to get those children. We're just going back to the village. Of course not. They fought for their children. And because they were not prepared to fight anybody, they were not armed to defend. And so they too were taken captive. So understand that the metaphor for this is they began with the children. They stole the children, which is what is happening now.
So relevant to
Our children are being stolen from us before our very eyes because their identities are being stolen. They're being called by nicknames. They're being called by names that don't identify their origin. So they don't know from whence they come. They don't know their ancestral group. They don't know their origins. They don't know anything about the land except the negative images that come up in films and other media that make you not want to identify with people who are crazy and wild and eat other people. So that you have to challenge, was it necessary for Africans to eat other people? Well, let's consider Africa. That was the veritable Garden of Eden. Every conceivable resource still exists in Africa. Not then only, but now. Every beautiful, wonderful flower, bird, fruit that exists is in Africa. So when were we hungry enough to need to eat people? When you are living in the Garden of Eden, when you are living in an orchard, are you really going to be hungry? Are you really going to be hungry enough to eat other human beings, other people? Very unlikely. It would be only in a case of scarcity, and the latest reports that we have heard is about cannibalism is when people are in downed airplanes or they're in some kind of real emergency situation when there's no other source of food except for those few cases that we hear about these kind of aberrations, people who go around doing that kind of thing. But for the most part, cannibalism is a last resort. When were Africans at that last resort? That they should need to eat other people. So it's unusual and it's incredible that we should even consider that as being a part of what the African history would include. So African people were what our own scholars have taught us that they were. They were builders, they were creators. The pyramids still stand, not in ruins, like as the Roman ruins are. The pyramids still stand with the original paint colors still on the walls because Africans build for eternity. So we have everything to be proud of. People who have done feats that defy science and imagination. How did they build the pyramids? How did they move the stones? They didn't have the kind of equipment. How did they engineer these things? These questions are still being asked. Africans didn't ask the questions, they simply did it. So we built the great civilizations. We were the world's first teachers. We were the world's first parents. We were the world's first scholars. We discovered all of the laws on which all the recent modern technology is based. How do I know this? Dr. Margaret Taylor Goss Burroughs wrote a poem. What shall I tell my children who are black? She says, I have dug deep into my history. When you dig deep into your history, then you find things that will make you so proud that you hold up your head and you would dare not be accused of being anything other than a descendant of African people.
Wow.
Regardless of what images you see now, because they show you images of refugees, you know, who are emaciated and starving because they have been deprived of their land, deprived of the resources of their land. All of the natural resources that enrich other nations are in Africa, and our labor is being stolen even today to mine those resources and to put them out on the market. So we first of all have to ask, what does it profit other people to put out this bad press on us?
I mean, it profits them a lot. You know, I can truly say, when you speak of being proud to be of African descent, I didn't get that until after volunteering at the Southside Community Arts Center, because you grow up and you go to school and they teach you about the greatness of other cultures, and the way to be successful is to compromise, is to ignore the fact that these people don't look like you, and ignore the fact that half of the things that they say are theirs someone else created, to ignore the fact that their legacy is patenting other people's creations, other people's taking other people's land, destroying other people's history, to completely ignore that and praise them in their supremacy. and live in their world, trying to be as close and as similar as they are. And and it's unfortunate because you go to college, like I went to a predominantly white institution, and it's frowned upon to be pro-black on those campus because you're closed-minded. You're ignoring the times. You're not being inclusive. You're separating yourself. They make you feel guilty for wanting to say, I want to know more about me. I want to know more about my culture. I want to know more about where I came from, where my ancestors came from. And I mean, it's even in my household. My mother wouldn't even let me watch Roots, because she was just like, it's dark. That's just dark. And then going to college and being in a predominantly white institution, and I'm still not able to really explore that the way that I wanted to. And then time passing, and I'm coming to the Southside Community Arts Center, and I'm being exposed to writers and poets and artists and painters and all these people who are saying, oh, we are the greatest. And it's like, wow, you're confident in that. Why are you confident in that? Where does that come from? And to have someone sit with me for 2 hours while I'm volunteering and tell me about me and my people and why we're so great and how half the things that this country has been built on is from us, and how we had our own Black Wall Street and we created our own schools and we were policing ourselves because there was no one to protect us. And at 23, I had to sit back and think to myself, why haven't I ever connected to this? Why wasn't this ever brought to my attention? Why was I never taught to be proud of where I came from? And the Southside Community Arts Center was that thing. And this is why I think it's so important that these Black institutions remain alive and filled with the youth, is because we're not getting that. I wasn't getting that, and I'm almost 25,
Oh, you're just an old woman.
But it's sad that I grew up all this time really not being comfortable or not being aware of the greatness within me, and seeing the poems by Dr. Margaret Burroughs. And she wasn't just a poet, she was an artist, she was an activist, she was a creator, she was a mother figure, she was
a visionary.
Everything. And really understanding that I can be that, because she created that building for me to be that, for me to learn that, for me to embrace that. And if I want to draw, I can draw, and I can still be a poet. If I want to paint, I can still be a social worker, and I can be an activist. And it's okay for me to say, it's not okay that you're killing girls and boys who look just like me. And it's not okay that I'm afraid to be pulled over by the same people that's supposed to protect me. And it's not okay that there's maybe 5 institutions that are known to young Black kids to go to see themselves and to be themselves and to experience our history holistically. Not just the Martin Luther King, the Rosa Parks stories, but holistically everything that has created us and where we are right now. And I think that it's working in society's favor that we, and I mean we in my generation, we are not connecting to this, because then they don't understand that they're still under attack. They don't understand that they're still captives, and that by not being aware and by not being consumed in learning of yourself and where you come from, you're doing yourself a disservice. Half the people that I meet at work don't even understand that I'm passing out government assistance, which is oppressing them. They never will understand that, and no matter what I say and what I do, because they don't know who they are and where they came from, all they know is someone giving to them. And it's like, it hurts, because here it is every Sunday, I'm sitting in a center where I know that I'm a creator, that I'm great, that I'm powerful, and I'm looking at a girl who's 23 and she's like, I don't know what I'm good at. I don't know what I can do. And I want to spend 3 hours telling her, you can do everything. You could do anything. You can create anything. You could be anything. But I can't. Of course, because Governor Ronald, if he found out I was spending 3 hours talking about black empowerment, I would be fired.
Right.
But just, it's sad. It's really, really sad. And I just would love to give what I've learned sitting here with you and just being at the center to everyone in my age group. Because I think we would fight differently towards the things that are oppressing us.
Well, you know, it's important that the Southside Community Arts Center, the DuSable Museum, I had the president of Muntu Dance Theater here. I had the interim executive director of ETA, Creative Arts Theater Foundation here just a bit ago, and Dr. Conrad Worrell, who is director of the Jacob H. Carruthers Center for Inner City Studies. I had them there, had them here to talk about the role of institutions or the importance of institutions. And I think maybe we need to pause, because I see people who are standing around in the studio, but if I'm not supposed to pause, I'm going to keep going with my train of thought. Because it's not your job, on your job, to do a job that should have been done before you had that job. The thing that I think matters most is the teaching that we give our children as their parents or aunts and uncles or whatever, family member, friends of the family. The things that we do and say that help them to recognize who we are, who they are, and how important it is to be that. Because at some point in my life, I had very good teachers. I was fortunate to go to a what was it called, a neighborhood school. And my teachers, for the most part, almost 98% of them were black teachers who were proud of being black and who gave me a lot of opportunities to learn that and to be proud of that. And then sent me to the Hall Branch Library, where the librarian was Charlemagne Rollins, to show you how important these people were. I remember my grade school librarian at the public library. I remember her because she made 8.5 by 11 pages of things about black history and black people in black history that we had to write reports on. So we went to the library and we did our reports, and she helped us with them, and then we made our reports at school. The thing is that because I was given that connection to my ancestry, my history, when the time came that life was not a crystal stair for me, and I was on welfare, I knew I didn't have to stay there. I knew I was not going to be there. You need to know that. As Jesse Jackson says, you need to keep hope alive. You need to know that you can do more than this. That this is a circumstance that has befallen you, that you can overcome, that you will overcome. Yes. And so to be on welfare, to be in the office getting food stamps, to be living in low-income housing, which they call the projects, to be living from one check and not really living from one check to the other, stretching. You become so great at improvisation, stretching from one from one check to the next check, trying to make those ends meet. Shopping at thrift stores, finding every creative, ingenious way in the world to feed and clothe your school-age children is a mighty experience. But when you do that, fully filled with the knowledge that this is not your destiny, that this is not how you going out, you know, you're not going down like this.
Temporary.
Then you do things like you go and enroll in school. And when somebody says you too old to go back to school, you say, I'm going to get older whether I go to school or not. So I'm going to get older going to school. And you keep going, and one day somebody hands you a piece of paper. Good. This piece of paper now is a permit to go get the next piece of paper, because this piece of paper will not get the job. This piece of paper just says, you know, you can report to the next station. But when you finally get something that enables you to get some regular revenue come in, then you know that it was true all the time, that you were strong, that you came from a resilient, strong people, and that you can overcome any obstacle. But if you take that as the license to go out and become a consumer and buy up stuff and get in debt, you know, and go out the world backwards, then you can do that. But if you understand that in gratitude for your blessing, that you owe something somewhere to somebody, and it seems like to me the people who are around you are the people you owe something to. So you can start doing some service, which is what you're doing when you volunteer. You don't get paid for it, but you just describe the benefit you get from it. Somebody gives you something that you paid high tuition and didn't get. Somebody is filling in the blanks in your life. And you want that same opportunity to be available for other people.
Yes.
But guess what? They've got to reach for it. You've got to search. You've got to seek. It's there for you. But you've got to find it. So you have found a niche, and you tell me about writing and poetry. You mean the Southside Community Arts Center isn't just a place where they hang pictures on the wall and people come and look at the pictures?
No, I've experienced some amazing events at the Southside Community Arts Center. They have open mics where poets come and speak, and musicians have performed there. I've met some artists like Ramon Static, who is currently what's being shown at the Southside Community Arts Center, and he takes what has happened in our past and what is happening right now in society, and he puts it together in paintings that resemble everything that we have experienced, and he does it so effortlessly, and it's so easy to understand and comprehend. And that experience was amazing to me, to really see an artist who's in my generation, who's like, I know and you know, and I'm putting this together so they can know. And I'm calling it COINTELPRO, which is such a huge part of our history when it comes to the government not being very friendly to standing against what they consider to be their way of doing things. And the COINTELPRO was the way to really keep an eye and control what was happening concerning Black liberation and Black empowerment. And for him to take that and explain it in a way that tied in our history and our current situation was amazing for me. And to meet a poet by the name of Emerald Green, who shares a background the same as me, and for her to write about it in such a way that is strong and direct, and she's not apologetic for it. She's very honest when it comes to her experience and how it shaped who she is. And they have classes where they teach you how to paint and create fabrics, and it's a school. It's a lot of times we sit on the stoop of the Southside Community Arts Center and we're discussing the interactions between black women and black men, and then it becomes church, it becomes fellowship. So the center for me has given me so many different things and has really placed me in a situation where I have to question everything. I have to question what I've learned in church, what I've learned at home, what I've learned in society, what I've created as my own morals and values, with other people's perception and other people's perspective, who's been here longer than me, who's experienced more than me, who knows more than me. And it's allowed me to grow. And it's been so many different things through the events, through the artist talks, and having people come in who are doctors and lawyers. And it's been an amazing growing and learning experience. And it's making me a better writer and a better poet and a better individual altogether. It's making me ask questions. You know, I used to be very, okay, all right. Because I grew up poor. So I never wanted to like rock the boat with anything, because I'm like, I just want to get to my space where I get a good job, I retire, I move out of my neighborhood and live my life. And it's making me question, well, why do you think that? Why do you think the first thing you do when you get successful is to leave your community? Why do you think that you must disconnect yourself from the friends you had in high school in order to be who you want to be? You know, why do you feel the way you feel about church? Why do you feel, why most of the poets you felt connected to weren't even your same race? Or why majority of the books you read were about other cultures than your own? It really made me have to sit back and ask questions about me and what I believed in and what created this mindset, and learn more and grow more and seek more information. So it's been an amazing experience, and having such a close connection to the director. Masekwa Myers will come down to
Masekwa is all isn't she marvelous?
She's more of a teacher, you know. She will stop me in the middle of what I'm doing and say, even when you're volunteering, be present, be honest, have integrity when you're volunteering. If you say you're going to be here at 1, not 1:03, not 1:05, be here at 1, because you're doing a service just like you do at work, and learning what it means to be a volunteer and take pride in that, and not just doing something, but really taking pride in that and being present to learn and to receive what opportunities you may have or what you can give. So it's just been a really great experience for me, and it's really causing me to find pride in everything, and find appreciation in everything. So it's been amazing.
Masekwa is one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. She and her husband Payman Rami. They are both very accomplished people. When we did a tribute to Dr. Margaret Burroughs at Malcolm X College, Masekwa came and she recited. She is such a drama queen, for real. And the thing is that, you know, when you think of the institutions that Dr. Burroughs co-founded, in every case she has had strong directors of those institutions, people who are very much accomplished and who could make lots of money working other places, doing maybe less and having less stress, but who know who they are and who know where they belong. Masekwa and Dr. Carol Adams are among those people who understand the importance of honoring and preserving black cultural institutions. And apparently you are one of the kinship group, because here you are, what you are doing is helping to do that. And that is very essential, because I did know that the Southside Community Arts Center does do a lot more things. They used to offer dance classes. I myself got a grant and offered a class in videography and photography. I didn't teach them myself. I found people who could do that, and then I recruited some young people in to learn those things, and some of those young people were fantastic photographers because they could see. They could see things that would miss other eyes. And so there's always the potential for growth within the Southside Community Arts Center. And I'm glad that you're there, you know, and I hope that other young people will want to come and volunteer as well, because I know you're open Wednesday through Sunday. You're open, I think you open at noon. And what time?
Until 5.
You open from noon till 5, and that's every day, including Sunday.
And we have events sometimes during the evening, but if you sign up on the website for our emailing list, you can always
give it
get
the email address.
I do believe that it's the Southside Community Arts Center
.org, probably.
.org, I do believe so.
Right.
I don't know it.
What's the phone number? People can call up.
I do not know the phone number.
I know the phone number, but it's in my phone.
Yes. Same
Okay.
Here.
Well, they're at 3831 South Michigan, and they're open from noon to 5 from Wednesday through Sunday.
And I'm there every Sunday, and I am willing to give tours and really get some information about the history. And the Southside Community Arts Center right now is at a place where it can be the same thing that it was when it was created 75 years ago. Because it's open, Massaquoi has created a place where it's open for us to create our own meaning for it in today. You know, it doesn't have to be what it was to the people who started initially. It could be formulated to what we needed for us to be as a young generation today.
It can evolve.
It can evolve, and I appreciate that she's given that type of openness to be creative in how we create the space at the Southside Community Arts Center. And so my goal while volunteering is to get young people to come in and create your space, you know, create a home at the Southside Community Arts Center, because the history there, the energy there, the welcoming spirit that it has when you walk through the door alone is just all you need to really start your mind going and ideas flowing, and it's just an open environment. And so I really want young people to really take that and start dance classes there again, and start writing and photography there again, so that after 75 years later from now, there's someone else who will be sitting here saying what the Southside Community Arts Center means to them.
Right. Well, I'm so glad to have had you for my guest, Mia Myers. You have represented the Southside Community Arts Center well. You also represented your age grade well. I hope there are a whole lot more like you, but I doubt it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.